In this video, I'm going to show you how I repaired all these damages caused by rock chips to this by only touching up the paint and applying clear coat. If you find this video helpful, please give a like and remember to subscribe to my channel. This is a 2014 Toyota Highlander that I have done a complete exterior detail job on. This includes rust prevention, paint touch-up, replacement of clear coat, compound and polish, installation of 3M protection film, as well as ceramic coating. I will put a link to all those videos in the description below, but in this video I will focus on just touching up the paint and applying clear coat. For some reason, Toyota Highlanders tend to have a lot of rock chips. As you can see here, there are so many paint chips, and a paint touch-up is not recommended for a damage like this. With this many chips, a repainting of the base coat and the clear coat is highly recommended. But I will be repairing these chips with the touch-up method. I will also apply clear coat for one reason. This car was in a minor accident and they applied clear coat without scuffing up the existing paint, and this resulted in the new clear coat not bonding with the old clear coat. So I will attempt to sand the peeling clear coat. I will try and get as much as possible without burning through the base color. Then I will scuff the entire bumper and apply a new layer of clear coat. There are also some rock chips on the hood that I will touch up. There's also a damage to the side right here. It seems like it was from the previous accident. I will repair that as well. And there are also some chips above the front windscreen. I will touch up those as well. So before I start the touch-up process, I'm going to just give the car a basic wash, and I'm going to use this wax grease remover to help remove deep contaminants. And this is a touch-up paint, so now I'm just giving it a quick basic wash. I recommend to have the paint shop try to do a close match instead of just using the color code to mix your paint. This will give a better finish at the end, because over time your paint color will fade. So it's better to have them match your paint instead of just mixing your paint based on the color code. Now a closer examination shows how many rock chips are on this car, and as you can see, there are so many that a complete paint job is highly recommended. Now I'm using 92% alcohol to clean up all the rock chips. Now I'm gonna give the paint a good shake for about 2 minutes, and then I'm gonna dip some of the paint in a bottle cover and use this very fine point makeup brush to do the touch-up. You can find these brushes very cheap at any beauty store. So the goal here is to touch up each chip with one touch of the brush. Therefore, you should examine your brush to see if it has enough paint to do the touch up. So I will take my time and do all these touch up. I also touch up these rock chips on the hood, and because of the size of these chips, it takes more than one touch of the brush to fill the chips, and this is after all the touch up of the paint. When doing the touch up, I deliberately touch up the paint higher than the existing paint because I intend to sand down the touch up paint to the level of the existing paint. But if you're not doing this, I recommend to touch up the paint to the level of the existing paint. Now I'm going to repair this damage to the side of the car. I bought the car this way, and I think it resulted from the accident that I saw on the Carfax report. And I'll be using masking tape to keep the repair area as small as possible. I will start the sanding with this foam sandpaper. It's about 180 grit, and it wasn't enough to completely sand the area, so I went for this 80 grit sandpaper, and it did the job very well. The paint was stripped from the metal of the car, and if it's not repainted, this can cause serious rust damage in the near future. I'll be using some body filler to remove some of the dent. That's way too much hardener, but I wanted it to dry very quickly. Ensure that you thoroughly mix the body filler with the hardener. I applied more than needed, but I'm going to use some elbow grease to sand all that down. So I kept sanding to level the body filler to have a flat surface. I always use masking tape to keep the repair area as small as possible. The smaller the repair area, the less work needs to be done. Throughout the entire process, I have been using a grease and tar remover. Now I'm taping off the area to apply 3 coats of primer. I use some good old newspaper to help mask off the area. I have some overspray, but I will clean that up at the end. So now I'm using 600 grit sandpaper just to level the body filler. And now I am using a makeup brush to paint the color. I'm using the makeup brush because this damage is in an area that is not very visible. If you have this damage in a very visible area, I recommend getting your paint in an air can. That will leave a smooth finish. At the end, I will use sandpaper to level the repair area, then polish and buff, and you won't even notice that I use a paintbrush to do this repair. You will see at the end. So this is a very cheap, easy, and fast way to repair a damage like this, but it is not the ideal way to get a smooth, perfect finish. Now I will move to the chips on the top of the car. It's the same process. Get the area as clean as possible, and I notice some minor rust in these rock chips, so I'm going to use this sandpaper and try to clean the area first before I start touching up with paint. Then I clean the area again, and whenever metal is exposed, you need to touch up the area with primer first, then apply the base color. I have the primer in a hair can, so I'm just gonna spray the primer in a bottle cover. If I attempt to apply the primer from the air can, this might be very messy for this small repair area. And guys, you need to understand that touching up your paint will never give a very smooth finish. It's just to make the existing damage looks better. So now I'm using the touch-up brush to apply the primer. After it's completely dried, then I touch up with the touch-up paint. Touching up the car is very simple, it's very easy, but it won't restore your paint to a perfect finish. You just gotta accept it as what it is. It's just a touch-up. So now it's time to apply clear coat. But before I do so, I'm going to wash the car, and I'm going to use sandpaper to level all those hundreds of touch-up that I've made on this bumper. So after washing the car, I'm going to tape areas that I do not want the sandpaper to damage. I will remove the bumper from the car, but it's easier to sand the bumper while it's still on the car. So I'm starting off here with a 3M scuffing pad. They're available on Amazon. I will put a link in the description below. These pads are what you will use to scuff up the paint before you apply clear coat. This enables the clear coat to bond to the base coat. This is very important, guys. I also will be doing wet sanding. This helps with the finish of the paint. The scuffing pad wasn't removing much of the clear coat, so I'm going to use this 1500 grit sandpaper with this sanding block, and I'm going to wet sand the entire bumper. So I'll be using a combination of both the scuffing pad as well as the 1500 grit sandpaper with the sanding block. I just take my time and sand the entire area. So now I have finished sanding the entire bumper, and now I'm going to mask off the bottom piece of the bumper because I wasn't able to remove it. So before I start the paint job, I'm just going to completely wash the bumper again, dry the entire area, use rubbing alcohol with distilled water to clean the area. And I'm going to use a scuff pad again just to scuff the entire bumper to ensure I didn't miss any area. If you miss areas, the clear coat might have problem bonding to the base coat. So it is very important to ensure that the area is completely scuffed up. Now I'm going to finish taping off the bottom piece of the bumper. Now this is a 2K clear coat, which is recommended for a job like this. This is the closest you'll be able to get to a spray gun, which is the ideal way of painting your car. To activate the clear coat, you will need to use this tool provided on the top to place on the bottom and just put to the ground and push as hard as you can to release a mixture inside the bottle. That will activate the clear coat. Now I'm going to do a final wipe down of the bumper with a tack rag. Remove all particles or anything that might be on the bumper before I start the painting job. And you notice that I'm wearing a mask. This clear coat is very toxic and you should not breathe this in. Now I am applying the clear coat. I'll be using 2 cans for this entire bumper. The key when painting clear coat is that you need to start moving the can before you squeeze. This helps to avoid runs. You need to keep the can at least 8 inches away from the bumper, and in most cases here it's more than 8 inches. It's like trying to vape. So because I held the can so far away from the bumper, I needed to give it 4 coats to get a good result. So I left the bumper to dry for like 3 hours, and this is the end result, guys. As you can see, it's a pretty good job for what I did. And if you look closely, you might be able to see a few of the touch-ups, but I'm very pleased with this result. A normal person won't be able to see those touch-ups. I have to look very closely to find them. So I am pleased with the result. And this is the finished result, guys. I'm pretty pleased with this job. To get this result, not having to repaint the base coat, is pretty amazing. If you find this video helpful, please give a like and remember to subscribe to my channel.